Hey, what's going on, everyone? Welcome to the Progressive Action TV show. I am your host, Tramel Thompson, and my co-host is right here. He said he's taking a day off today, though. He wanted to eat. He said, Dad, I'm going to do the next show with you and all that other stuff. Come here, Jaden. You going to be back next show?
Yeah.
All right, he's going to be back next show because I need him to learn this stuff, too. I need him to learn about diversity because I'm quite sure sometime in his life he's going to come across that, and I need for him to know how to handle it and moving forward. Now, like I said, this show is going to be about diversity, and actually what prompted me to do this show today was a tweet from Daily News journalist Clayton Goussat, and he said something very important that I always believed. And it's good to see that me and him was on the same page with this. And I think that you guys will be on the same page with me also. So let me show you guys the tweet. And this tweet was from today, during the MTA board meeting. He said, unfortunately, we've been told we need to stop the diversity committee meeting. MTA Chief Diversity Officer Michael Gardner says in the middle of a pretty productive discussion on hiring more women and people of color. The MTA's diversity committee meets 4 times a year and is usually not very informative. New board members brought good questions, fresh blood. That this public process was cut short tells you a lot about how much the MTA actually cares about diversity. Now, if you ask me personally, I believe the MTA cared just enough about diversity so they won't catch discrimination cases, so they won't be called racist, because we already know what time it is. They got to move covert, and they just going to do just enough to meet those thresholds so they won't be called anything that will bring down the value of the people that's in charge or the company within itself. They do just enough. They do not exceed expectations. They do not go beyond expectations. They do just enough so they can meet certain thresholds so they won't get any type of lawsuits or litigation against them regarding discrimination or racism or anything of that nature, right? So let's be clear about that. Now, for those who don't know, MTA board meetings happen 2 times a month. 2 separate meetings, 1 time a month. So you have meetings on Mondays, you have meetings on Wednesdays. The Monday meetings basically have all the sub agencies, like you have New York City Transit, you have Long Island Railroad, you have the Diversity Committee, you have all these different committees that meet on Mondays. And then on Wednesdays, you have everyone meet at one time and they make it happen like that, right? So these Monday meetings, people always focus on the Wednesday meetings, but these Monday meetings are very, very, very important also. These Monday meetings are very important also. And you get a lot of information. And today was one of those days where you get a lot of information. And also at every board meeting, you get these pamphlets, these books of each department, what's going on in there, whether it's the diversity committee. Today we focus on the diversity committee. So we're going to be talking about, I'm going to bring up a couple of different slides regarding that. And I'm also going to be playing a few clips of videos that happened during the diversity committee meeting that I want to make sure that you guys understand and see. So let me get this back right, because it's very important that you guys see where I'm coming from, because I just don't make these claims about nothing. I like to substantiate my claims with data. I like to use their own words against them. I like for us to see what the real truth is, because this company would never tell us the truth. They would never tell us the truth. So I'm going to pull out a clip where Dr. Rosalind Green, she's an MTA employee, and we're going to examine some things that she said. Now, she's a doctor. She should get this. She should get this. But, you know, everybody want to be politically correct. They're afraid of their boss because they already know what time it is. Once you really start talking about and unpacking these things, you will be a target at this company. Your career will be over. That ceiling will be right above your head, and you won't go no further. You will be right where you at until you retire. So let's get into the first clip real quick and check it out.
Let's skip one. Well, We had a slide here that talked about the type of jobs. We talked about job categories. There are 8 job categories here at the MTA. And in those 8 job categories, we have 4 that we are experiencing underutilization. Now, the underutilization that we are speaking of today is based on the workforce data that was post consolidation. So now that we have, no, pre consolidation, I'm sorry. So now that we have consolidated, we will be presenting you with new data that talks about the new goals and new areas that we may be underutilized in. But for right now, we're going to talk about our underutilization that's in officials and administrators. That's one of the categories. The type of jobs there would be executive leaders, senior management, some of our management, well, all of our management staff. So it would be those type of titles. Um, the underutilization we have in that area is for females, blacks, and Hispanics. The next category.
Now let's unpack what she said. Um, and I'm gonna put the next slide on the screen so you guys can really fully understand what she was talking about when it comes to underutilized categories. And you know what? Let me just go straight to that now. These underutilized categories, um, like she said, officials, administrators, those are basically management positions. Look at those titles in there: executive leaders, deputy chiefs, general managers, directors, construction administrators, general counsel, chief of staff, managers, compliance officers, superintendents. These are the management titles. Now look in the dark blue under that same section. Who's underutilized in those areas? Females, blacks, and Hispanics. Females, blacks, and Hispanics. That is very alarming. That does not signal to me a company built off of diversity. How in the leadership departments, titles, that females, blacks, and Hispanics are underutilized. And underutilized is just another word for they possibly was being discriminated on. Because when you look at the history of America, those are the three that are oppressed: blacks, Hispanics, and women. And in the MTA, we see the same exact thing in the leadership roles. To me, that is very alarming, and something needs to be done about that. Now, people will make the argument that, because, when you don't look at the numbers, it probably won't make sense to you. So I'm going to jump into the numbers right now to explain to you guys, to show you guys more of what I'm talking about. So also in the diversity committee book, they break down the New York City transit workforce. As you can see, um, to the left, you have the job categories, all the job categories there. Across, you see the people who make up those categories. You see whites, blacks, Hispanics, Asians, so on and so forth. But like I said, I want to focus on the leadership part of this whole entire thing. And so you guys could actually see the numbers to see if it makes sense, because it don't make sense. It don't make sense. So as I zoom in, you look at that 8,840 number. That 8,840 number, that's the total amount of white people in New York City transit. 8,840. You look at the next bold number next to that, going across the bottom, just look across the bottom. You see 21,675. That's how many black people are in New York City transit. When you look at the Hispanics, the total number of Hispanics are 8,614. So we talking about black and Hispanic people combined make up 30,000 of the workforce. 30,000 of the workforce. Now, if you really pay attention, you see that the whites are outnumbered by blacks and Hispanics 4-1 here at this company, right? But let's examine the next part. Now let's look at the leadership titles in this agency. As I scroll up, if you look at the whites, it's 511 in leadership roles in this company. There's 507 blacks. There's 226 Hispanics. I need someone to explain to me how you have a number of 21,675 black people in New York City Transit and only 507 are in leadership roles, where you only have 8,840 whites and you have 511 people in leadership roles. How does that work? I need someone to explain to me, how does that work? And if you compare the Hispanics, because the Hispanics and the whites in this company have almost the same amount of numbers. When you look at those numbers compared to the whites, the Hispanics only have 226 people in leadership roles in this company and managerial titles, where whites have 511. How does those numbers make sense? Mainly, even though black people and Hispanics have a 4-to-1 ratio over whites at this company, the whites in this company have a better chance at making it to management than blacks and Hispanics. Why is that? Why is that? Why is that? It makes absolutely no sense. And I want to revisit what Clayton Goussat said again. That this public process was cut short tells you a lot about how much the MTA actually cares about diversity. And just to be clear, once again, the diversity committee meetings only happen 4 times a year. The MTA do not care about diversity. Why? Because it's running how they intend for it to run. Mostly white people are going to make it to the top and black people are going to have a glass ceiling. I don't want to hear those myths. I don't want to hear those lies about black people aren't ambitious enough. We don't care. We're lazy. That's BS. That's BS. That is BS. The real truth is that there is a glass ceiling on people of color at this agency. Now let's get into what Lisette Camilo, let's get into her clip during the MTA board meeting today. So let's check it out.
If you notice, there's a bit of an imbalance here of sorts. New York City Transit, as you can see, has the lion's share of our workforce. About 50,000 employees are within transit, and many of the job categories and job titles that Dr. Green mentioned, the numbers game will typically show that New York City Transit is where many of them are. The reason why I'm highlighting this is because some of the challenges that we will face in the areas of underrepresentation or underutilization deals with civil service, right? For the vast majority of the positions in New York City Transit, it is a civil service agency. You have to take a test, you have to pay for a test, sign up, take it, pass, get on a list, and wait. And that poses its own issues that we have to, work through in order to talk through how to address some of the underutilization.
Now she says talk through, work through. She's not ready to address the elephant in the room. She's not ready to address the elephant in the room. And that's an issue, right? That's an issue. Miss Camilo, guess what? Newsflash. For those managerial positions, that's in those titles, officials in administration, those are not civil service issues. Those are interior issues within the MTA. So how do you rectify that? Now let's examine some of what she said. She says the challenge that we will face in the areas of representation and underutilization deals with civil service for the mass majority of the positions in New York City Transit. It is a civil service agency. That's correct. It is a civil service agency to get in the door. But what happens once you get in the door past the little supervisor positions and want to get into management? Now, like I said, what she don't want to address is the true elephant in the room. And Ms. Camilo, let me redirect you to the officials and administrators category because I know that you probably don't want to touch on this yourself. Maybe you came through the good boy, the old boys network. I don't know. But tell me, it has nothing to do with civil service. What is the excuse as to why so many black people work here, so many Hispanics people work here, but we not represented in management compared to white people in management? 8,000 white managers, 511 and no 8,800 white people in New York City Transit, 511 in managerial titles versus 20 some thousand black people, 30,000 with the Hispanics, and we don't even have 800. That makes absolutely no sense. Something is wrong. And until you guys actually address the elephant in the room regarding that, there's not going to be no change here. You know, those titles don't require a civil service test. So why do you think that the blacks, females, and Hispanics, and you in your words, underutilized in the MTA? Now, you know, first, let's deal with the historical part of America, period. Three of the most oppressed people in this country: women, blacks, and Hispanics. And I always said that the MTA is a microcosm of the United States. I truly believe that, especially when it comes to race relations in this company. Now, another issue, because I would really like to know, what do you think are the reasons and the factors that create this underutilization? What do you think the factors are? Because, you know, one thing when you deal with corporate people, a lot of corporate people don't have the ability. I'm talking to my followers on this one. A lot of corporate people don't have the ability to think outside the box, to critically think. They think inside a room. It's basically a box. They think inside a box. They don't look at the things that really are the problems as to why these things are going on. This is why management watch my shows. They watch my shows because they get ideas from my shows. We already seen Sarah Maya. She done stole my whole idea. I done put that. A matter of fact, I meant to do a whole show on that. I'm gonna touch on that another time. But you know, they steal ideas. They watch the show. They steal ideas, and they don't do the right thing. So, and I'm gonna give her uh Miss Camilo, I'm gonna give you some reasons as to why these underutilizations are created. Now, let's be honest and let's be frank, because I know that you can't say it and you won't say it because you don't want your uh, personal, professional career to be over with. But when you look at the officials and administrators portion of the underutilization, the reason it's like that, blacks, Hispanics, and females, specifically blacks and Hispanics, is that you have white leaders cultivating uh, other white leaders, right? They're only looking to bring other white people up. They're not looking to be diverse at all. You know, this company is not looking to be diverse at all. Recently, I just did a show. I want you to go and watch it with Jamise Plato. I want you to go watch that, right? And it talks about how she's qualified, she was discriminated against, she was passed over for other white people who she is more qualified than, and it's currently up under investigation. And she said that Sarah Maya allegedly was the one who did this. And Sarah Maya is someone who's not qualified herself. She has a college degree to be a museum manager, not MTA. And then she's in a position because of her skin color, and she's able to discriminate on people, women and black women at that. That's two people in that underutilized category, because she don't share that same space with them racially. You know, that's an issue that you guys don't want to talk about. And this happens all over. In fact, I told you guys, I got some new equipment where it disguise people voices. Managers are lining up right now to do these shows. I'm going to do the shows, and I'm going to make sure that all of this stuff get exposed. Another thing, now, in a situation like with Jamise Plato and Sarah Maya, how do you rectify that? Like, the whole system is corrupt. I don't even trust uh, the investigation, because this investigation, if they find anything substantiated against Sarah Maya, what happens? It leads to litigation. And at the end of the day, the EEO, SIR, and all these other investigative people in the MTA are there to protect the MTA from litigation. That's a whole nother topic, but this is what happens. This is exactly what happens. How do you address the old boys network that run rampant in the MTA? How do you address that issue? Because the old boys network is the reason why you have blacks, females, and Hispanics on that underutilization category in managerial positions. How do you address the old boys network? And you can't say, oh, there's no old boys network here. Oh, yes, there is. There is an old boys network here. The women's issue. Why are women not? First of all, let me put that back on the screen again. I need you guys to pay attention to this. Women are in all four categories. You see females in all four categories. Now, the reason for that is women, first of all, it's hard for a woman to get into a supervisory position. Why? Especially if she decides to expand her family while in the MTA. What happened? Women only get 10 days maternity leave on this job. Now, everyone knows it takes 6 weeks to heal from a natural birth and at least 8 weeks to heal from a C-section. Women, after 2 weeks, have to use up their time, their sick time. And what happens when they use up their sick time because they want to expand their family? When they do take a promotional test, what's the number one thing that the MTA look at? Are you a person that comes to work? They don't care about your discipline. There's plenty of managers and supervisors who got promoted because of their discipline. But when it comes to your sick time, the first thing the company want to know is, do you come to work? They don't look at the reason as to why you're absent. They just say, hey, you're supposed to have this amount of sick time. You don't have this amount of sick time. We're just going to pass you. They're not going to say, oh, you want to know what? She had a baby. You know, we got to give her some leniency. You know, she only get 2 weeks. So maybe she used up her sick time to make sure that her newborn was good and all that other stuff. The company don't look at that. So that is alarming why you have women, females in all four categories. It's because the MTA discriminate on women with these archaic work rules, and they still haven't passed our paid family leave thing yet. And we're going to get into that also on another show, right? So this company act like women just came on the property 2 days ago. There's no light duty work. There's no reasonable accommodation. And there's no answer to after a woman have her baby, she only get 2 weeks paternity leave, and that's it in all of those titles that you mentioned. So if you're a woman that's in, let me put that back on the screen. If you're a woman in service maintenance, in a skilled craft, or in administrative support, now administrative support that looks more like resume jobs. So let's focus on the skilled craft and the service maintenance, where you have to take a civil service test to get into and to move around in some of those titles, because you may start as a conductor or a cleaner. Let's say you started as a cleaner and you decide to have a baby and you use up your sick time. Guess what happens? You won't be promoted to conductor or train operator or whatever your promotional title, your promotional pathway may be. It just will not happen. So that needs to be addressed also. And I don't see you guys mentioning it. Only thing I see is a lot of, yeah, I came from DCAS, so I may know I know some things about that. Nobody don't care where you came from. I'm not saying that in a disrespectful way, because it could be you, anybody else. Like the other lady got doctor in front of her name, and they can't figure out the basics as to why certain people are in certain categories. Like, this is insane. This is insane. Also, Ms. Camilo, you came from DCAS. Why don't you tell the commissioner of DCAS or whoever that may be that the 1 in 3 rule is hurting the company? Why are they disqualifying applicants who pass the test at that? We're not talking about low scoring people. We're talking about people who get in the 80s, 90s. They are being 1 in 3. They are falling within a 1 in 3 rule. How does that happen? Right? That's an archaic rule. There's no place for it. If you want to hire people, then hire the people based on their test scores, not on some 1 in 3 BS that makes absolutely no sense in 2022. Right? And then you have the other foolishness that goes on in this company where, let's say, someone that's a cleaner may take an open competitive test to be a conductor or train operator. For some reason, and like I said, this is open competitive. For some reason, the MTA look at that employee that works for the MTA sick time and say they not qualified, but they don't have the ability to look at someone on the outside coming from the street on an open competitive sick time to discriminate against them. That's discriminatory within itself, and that should be illegal. And that also hurt service titles. I know plenty of people who want to be a train operator, want to be a conductor, want to be a bus operator, but they can't get into those titles because the MTA is wrongly looking at their sick time compared to someone out on the street that came from the street and stop them from moving into those titles. So there's a lot going on, and you guys need to start listening to the workers. You guys need to start listening to the members. And I get it. I respect some of y'all paths. To become a doctor is phenomenal within itself, especially for a Black woman. I salute you, Ms. Camilo. For you to get to where you're at, coming from DCAS, I salute you. But you want to know what? Don't bring old practices to new places, because DCAS is a racket within itself. And then now you're bringing it to another racket. It makes absolutely no sense. You guys need to start listening to the workforce. Stop putting differences. Stop thinking that you're better because you have a higher title or a higher role. There are plenty of intelligent people in this company, all races, genders, whatever you may have here. There are plenty of intelligent people. The managers aren't the only people that have college degrees. I have a college degree. In fact, my college degree make more sense than Sarah Meyer college degree to be a manager here, right? But you guys need to start doing the right thing. Like I said, the MTA do not care about diversity. They care about diversity just enough to keep those negative titles away from them, races, and discrimination. That's all they care about. That's all they care about. Now, if you guys enjoyed today's show, make sure to donate to the platform via Cash App, Progressive Action 100. I have a lot of shows to catch up on. My co-host Jaden will be back soon, and we're going to continue rocking this boat because I don't know if y'all noticed, this world is getting spooky and it's changing. These people out here is really starting to show us who they are. And this is not the time for us to be quiet. And to all my white allies out there, you guys got to start waking up. The power that be don't care if you're white or not. They look at you as that you're amongst them. They call it collateral damage. It's a real thing. And in order for us to advance as a workforce, as a labor force, we must eradicate ourselves with all the people who's holding us back. Not everybody that's on your team is on your team, if you know what I mean. So we must stay steadfast on our goals, on our focus, and fight back against all this oppression that's happening in this company and in America as a whole. I'll catch you guys later. Peace. You know where to find me. Donate to the platform. Catch you guys later.